Morning, Donda.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Dennis.
With the Behavioral Health Administration. Thank you, Donda. One quick note, the Behavioral Health Administration's Joint Budget Committee briefing is happening at 10 o'clock today. So Andrea, the BHA's Deputy Policy Director, and I have to jump off at about 9:45-ish, 9:50-ish to head over to take some notes on the questions that the Joint Budget Committee will want us to answer before the BHA has our formal hearing next Friday, the 15th. So if you're interested in hearing about, hey, what does the Joint Budget Committee think of the BHA and have questions for us, today's a good day if you want to jump over there, and then even better to stop in and listen next Friday on the hearing. That's where today it's more of a our JBC Joint Budget Committee analyst is up there just trying to get the Joint Budget Committee members to initiate some questions or think about what could you ask the BHA, and then the BHA comes back on Friday, and that's where our staff will be up there answering their questions live and having the back and forth. So that's the Friday meeting's probably a little bit more important today, but you'll get a little sneak peek if you're interested and you want to jump over. Not that I don't want you to participate in Bhpac, but that's also another opportunity happening at the exact same time. And welcome to the start of the legislative session once the briefings begin. So wild times. One quick update before I kick it back to Donna to just go over the introductions and whatnot. Some of you may have heard our BHA Legislative Affairs Officer, Casey Badminton. She has moved over to the governor's office, which is a fantastic opportunity for her, really a fantastic opportunity for all of Colorado to keep Casey. She came from Washington, D.C., working in Congress for a long time. So she's staying with the state, but just not with the BHA. So in the level of transparency, we're scrambling a little bit, but we are in good hands in an interim capacity. Erica Gannett, you may know that name or that face or that person from the safety net team. So she was part of the regulatory redrafting piece. So she has taken on the interim role for the time being while we frantically search for a new legislative affairs officer. Legislative affairs officer is a fancy term for our BHA lobbyist or liaison that works at the Capitol every day during the session. So like they're really that face of the BHA with legislators. Looking at Megan Lovelace, that is very familiar with Casey, right? Because Megan's also at the Capitol quite a bit. So as many of you are. So fantastic opportunity for Casey. We fully support that. That's what we really want to push for at the BHA. Is it's about people first, even within our organization. Like, if there's an opportunity, let's make sure that people are taking it. So, also an opportunity if folks know someone that would be, hey, this would be interesting, let us know. Let them know it's an open and ongoing posting. So it's not a closing date for that position, but we are trying to get that filled as soon as possible. So any questions about that before I kick it back to Donda? And you don't have to listen to my scratchy voice because I'm a little bit under the weather.
Ryan, I just had some questions in the chat, so I won't take up all the time here. Just related to the JBC, both the event today and then on Friday. I didn't know if you could share those docs with us. I know that council will bring forward some some white papers today. Is there a way that you have those? Like, can you share those with us? Because I know they dropped them into the website, but after the meeting, and it just would be great to be able to review those. And could you drop Casey's job post in the chat just so we can share it out with folks?
Yep. Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, with some of those quick ones, yes, we will have an opportunity even throughout every month talking through bills running through the session, bills that impact the BHA directly, some that just are behavioral health focused that are in, like, right, we've talked before in here, and And it's a good refresher that there are about 17 or 18 state departments that run behavioral health programs. It's not just the BHA running behavioral health programs in Colorado. So this is really a good opportunity for us to even have a little bit of a how a bill becomes a law discussion at the beginning here. And maybe that's a good opportunity for us in January to walk through that right before the session starts on the 10th. And then go down that path of what does it look like to get updates every month in here and having those discussions about what it means to participate in the civics of Colorado, right? So opportunity for us to also potentially even pitch Erica as well as whoever we get as our legislative affairs officer, even though the timing isn't fantastic because they are incredibly busy, oftentimes sleeping at the Capitol. But yeah, so Megan, looks like Andrea posted the job posting, and there's that. Thank you, Andrea. And with that, I will kick it to you, Donna, to go through roll call.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Let's go ahead and start with Aaron Black.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I am a Loveland City Council member and very happy to be part of this group. And on a personal note, I will need to leave at any moment. We're actually having a behavioral health issue with one of my sons today, and so I'm on call.
I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you for letting us know, Aaron. Natalie Brown.
Morning, everybody. Natalie Brown with Summit Stone Health Partners in Larimer County. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Natalie. Charles Davis. Charles, are you still on here? Okay, let's go to Carrie Eckert.
Good morning, it's Kari Eckert.
Oh, sorry.
Robbie's Hope, yeah, I get that a lot. Robbie's Hope Executive Director. We are a youth suicide prevention organization based in the metro area of Denver.
Thank you, Kari. Jacob Fry. Oh, Jacob, I'm not hearing you. It doesn't say you're on mute. Well, Jacob's waving to everybody, so he is here. Let's go with Lorraine Gilroy. Okay, is it me?
I'm Lorraine Gilroy. I'm with Rocky Mountain Clubhouse Coalition, and I'm a member of the Clubhouse in Greeley.
Thank you, Lorraine. Leah Andrews.
Hi, everybody. Aaliyah Andrews. I'm the Recovery Services Manager at the Behavioral Health Administration, or at Behavioral Health Administration.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Angie Wold.
Hi, I'm Angie Wold. I am the Director of Operations at Addiction Research and Treatment Services, better known as ARS.
Thank you, Angie. And it looks like Charles can join us now. Charles Davis.
Yeah, Charles Davis, CEO at Crossroads Turning Points. We do services in Southern Colorado.
Thank you, Charles. Susan Wagner.
Susan Wagner, Manager of Peer Services at Jefferson Center for Mental Health. We are the Community Mental Health Center for Jefferson, Gilpin, and Clear Creek counties.
Thank you, Susan. Kristen Toombs.
Sorry, having trouble finding my mute button. Kristen Toombs. I am with the state of Colorado. I'm the director of our Office of Homeless Initiatives. And glad to be here. Thanks. Oh, and I will have to hop off at 10 for a meeting, and then hopefully we'll be back once that's done.
Thank you. Sounds like it's a busy day for everybody today. Dennis Streeter.
Good morning, Dennis Streeter, our Community Broadcasting Network. I am a lived experience member and am a co-chair of the membership committee and also involved very deeply in the prevention committee. And I'm actually going to start video podcasting on behavioral health issues in January. And I'm collaborating with Margie Grimsley and Megan Lovelace and Dr. Rosen And I'm looking for more collaborators for content on the issues. So I'm going to put my website in the chat, and I invite you all to take a look at it and get back to me with any ideas or ways to collaborate. Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis. Phyllis Reed.
Morning, everyone. Phyllis Reed, and I am Director of Health Education Services Office at CDE. Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Phyllis. And it says Michael Miller, but is that Shannon Miller?
I'm Michael.
Okay.
I'm Michael Miller. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm also hopefully going to be a member with lived experience, but I work at Jefferson County Public Health and the Points Western Service Program.
Thank you, Michael. And how about Margie Grimsley?
Hi, everyone. I'm Margie Grimsley, and with the Colorado Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health. And I'm no longer on the council, but part of the membership and prevention committee.
Thank you, Margie. Jenna Kapp. Jenna, are you still on here? Okay, let's go to Tasha.
Tasha Conker, Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council representative, Family Voice Council member, and peer mentor for the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado.
Thank you, Tasha. Lloyd.
Morning, everyone. My name is Lloyd Moore, person with lived experience. Former council member, remaining as guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Sharon Mausch.
I'm Sharon Mock, and I'm a family advocate for Southeast Colorado and Cheyenne, Baca, Prowers, and Kiowa County. I advocate for our CMP program, and I'm also the advocate for parents with students with IEPs.
Thank you, Sharon. Amy Leiden.
I'm Amy Leiden, clinical coordinator of peer services with Jefferson Center. So I have lived experience as well as being a provider.
Thank you, Amy. Megan Lovelace.
Hi, everyone. Megan Lovelace. I am from rural Colorado. I live in Eagle County, and I am the family seat. I have a wonderful young person with complex needs involved in multiple systems. I'm also the mental health policy lead for the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, and I sit on the Family Advisory Council for the Pediatric Mental Health Institute at Children's Hospital Colorado. I'm also on the board at the Alliance to End Hunger, which is an international hunger organization located in Washington, D.C. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Megan. I promise I'll get it straight. I am trying. I promise. Let's go ahead and Stephanie Johnson.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Johnson. I'm the Director of Community Relations and Public Policy with WellPower, Community Mental Health Center in Denver.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hope Hyatt.
Good morning, everyone. I am Hope Hyatt. I'm the Executive Director at the Colorado Mental Wellness Network. I've been in my role now for 6 years, but I've been connected to this organization for over a decade. I was in our very first peer support training class as a student, our first one back in 2012. I'm really honored to be here. I'm grateful to be accepted onto the committee. I unfortunately wasn't able to be here last month. It was, my dog is in the ER, and so just the timing, I thought I might be able to come on the end, and I just couldn't. So luckily the dog's okay. And I'm really grateful to be here. I recognize a lot of faces, and I'm happy to join in our pursuit of behavioral health and support and care in our state. Colorado Mental Wellness Network, we are a 100% peer-run, peer-led, grassroots nonprofit organization. Been around for, like I said, over a decade. We provide, all of us here have lived experience, mental health, substance use, trauma co-occurring, and we provide the most comprehensive training to become a peer support professional. We also have a direct peer support recovery services program called Peer Pathways to Wellness, co-located across Denver. We've been successfully providing high quality peer support across Denver since March of 2019 with this program, and supported, like the last I saw was like 15,737 individuals. That was since Monday this week. We're an organization that really connects and supports and elevates our peer support professional workforce. We've been leaders in the Colorado peer support movement for a while, and it's a pleasure to announce it. Next month, we are officially launching the Colorado Association of Peer Support Professionals to further that advancement, connection, and elevation, and more on that another time. But just really grateful to be here, and thank you. I'm honored to join the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Frank Cornelia.
Hi, everybody. Frank Cornelia. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Colorado Behavioral Healthcare Council. We represent community mental health centers and one specialty clinic, Servicios de la Raza.
Thanks, Frank. Bonnie Holiday.
Yes, good morning. My name is Bonnie Holiday. I use pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm a program manager at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I oversee prevention programming, and for the purposes of this group, I'm your prevention TA. So I'm here to connect you to supports and resources related to the prevention field.
Thank you, Bonnie. Danielle Gillespie.
Good morning, Danielle Gillespie with the Behavioral Health Administration. I'm the Recovery Services Coordinator, and thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Danielle. Andrea Jones.
Good morning, everybody. Andrea Jones. I'm the Deputy Policy Director over at Behavioral Health Administration.
Lisa Weinberg.
Hi, my name is Lisa Weinberg. Apologies for being off camera. I'm a bit under the weather and runny nosy. My pronouns are he, she, hers, and I am the Workforce Development Director at the BHA. Thank you for being here. And also apologies, but I will have to jump off at 10 o'clock for a JBC prep meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I have somebody who's listed as Jacob's Autopilot, but I don't know who that would be. Are you there?
An autopilot takes notes. It's like
gotcha.
An IA note taker.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, let's go back to Megan Shelton.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see your faces on here today. Megan Shelton. I go by she, her, hers, and I'm Division Director of Intergovernmental and Community Engagement at Behavioral Health Administration.
Thank you, Megan. And is there anybody besides Ryan that I missed? All right, it's back to you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you everyone for the intros. It's always nice to hear a whole lot about people, and yeah, I mean, it kind of warms my heart that so many people are passionate about behavioral health services and want to contribute to this and really help the state move us into that direction that we all want, making sure that services are available for everyone. With that, we had talked last time about some internal pieces that we need to get taken care of within and how we operate or administer the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council. One update that it feels like I've been giving this update for a very, very long time is our boards and commissions coordinator position. Yeah, that is the position that will ultimately be responsible for administering all of the BHA's advisory councils. That includes this one. That includes administering the Behavioral Health Administration's Advisory Council, or BHAC, not to be confused with BPAC, right? As well as the 2765 board, that's the Mental Health Advisory Board for Service Standards and Regulations, as well as the CYMHTA board, the Children and Youth Mental Health Treatment Act board, as well as the 988 board of directors. That's that type 1 board that helps us work through the how do we pay for the 988 hotline. With that, those 5 boards within the Behavioral Health Administration, we need to make sure that they're consistent within what bylaws look like, what membership looks like, what recruitment looks like, just so there's a level of clarity and consistency about how we administer that. That is the goal of that position. That position PD has been drafted. It is with our HR department. I will push our HR team to work through the hiring plan, and hopefully we get that position posted in the next couple weeks. I see Donda nodding her head a little bit. I'm hoping that is in response to me talking about this, as Donda helps me out in a lot of the hiring pieces. And then ideally we have that, open for a few weeks. If you didn't know, there's a holiday coming up soon, so holidays and hiring also create some challenges with the hiring plan, and interviews and whatnot. So ideally, we're probably looking at January, early February before we potentially have applicants and interviews. But right, trying to get there. We're moving along. You probably have heard me say that a few times. So, yep. Megan, good call out. 2765 is Title 27, Article 65 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, which is the care and treatment of persons with mental health disorders. So that is involuntary mental health service delivery, which also includes voluntary mental health service delivery within that section, but mental health specific, not to be confused with the involuntary commitments from the substance use disorder side. Me talking there just shows the complexity of our behavioral health system, even within our laws. But Megan, did you have something else there as well?
Just thank you so much for putting a position forward that will coordinate all these different advisory councils and all of these different things in statute that are kind of lending the voice to the BHA. My question is, oftentimes hiring for State Department can be really arduous. And I know we've talked about this in other rooms before, but I think it would be so amazing if the BHA hired someone from the community, right? And sometimes there's lots of barriers that can be in place for that. So when you're looking at specifics like education requirements or some of these things that are sometimes State Department things, but what we know is that HR can supersede that, right? You know, if you find great candidates, you can definitely do, you know, equivalent experience and things like that. But that's not always transparent when you look at the posting. So I wonder if you would be willing to make that posting as accessible and so that we can spread it out and reach far to find someone from community whom truly can serve you all in the way that you're looking for, right? And not just maybe somebody from academia who doesn't have a lot of experience in the field. And so I wonder if there's a way to make that posting a little bit more accessible. And I don't necessarily know what that means, right? But can you like sit down with HR and maybe even talk to state where they say, well, we have to say that you must drive a Land Rover in order to get this job or other weird things, right? Like we know that's not true. So let's make that not true in the posting if it's at all possible.
I love that call out and thank you. And that is part of where we're stuck in, I shouldn't say stuck, working with HR right now about what does it actually mean to have minimum qualifications and how do we make that more accessible for people in Colorado? This doesn't have to be a, hey, you come in with a PhD in some certain great form, manner, whatever. So that is where we are right now, is working through that. What does postings look like? We have to run through the DPA, the Department of Personnel and Administration's process. But Megan, you're exactly right, is we can refine that the best we can. And that's, we have a little bit different approach to how the BHA is handling our HR stuff, which I think is very, very positive. Maybe it takes a little bit more time on the front end, but I think we have the opportunity to get better candidates that maybe we didn't have that pool or access to before. So I love that call out and continue to keep on bringing up those things, especially if you see postings where like, ooh, kind of missed there. That's the feedback that we absolutely have to have, right? That like this is a work in progress for us as well. There's yeah, there's no way that we should be saying that we have this down pat. So, hey, we need to be able to take that feedback as well and make sure that we are making changes to it. So thank you, Megan, for that call out, and we will definitely do our part to try to make sure that these positions, allow for a more diverse candidate pool as well. I will make that commitment for my division for sure, with Andrea as well. It'll be Andrea, who's supervising that position as well as we kind of staff out her team. So with that, I appreciate this conversation. Like, I want this to be as open, as transparent as we can possibly be. I mean, I take a lot of stock into the folks here, putting your time, effort, energy into this. So definitely, I take those comments to heart to make sure that we are getting this to a spot that makes sense for the people of Colorado. Shifting gears a little bit, we have been working through the bylaws. What we talked about last time is getting the bylaws updated into a format that is consistent across the BHA and I will call it our parent agency, the Department of Human Services. So I went through and redrafted some of the bylaws and put them in sections that kind of align with the structure that was advised to us through the boards and commissions at the governor's office, and then runs down through CDHS. So really that is kind of the articles, creation, organization, procedures and rules of orders, general policies, administrative directives, and then ultimately, how do we update these bylaws? Sorry, my camera went a little bit funky there. So I have that ready, but wanted to have the conversation about, it shouldn't be just the BHA drafting these bylaws. I want to make sure that we are having these open and robust conversations about, hey, when we have a subpart of an article, actually, let me just share my screen so you can look at what I'm talking about. Right, so like this table is what I used as more of a template for redrafting or taking that first shot of drafting, where it's what these things mean, and where they are, and then the drafting creation. I intentionally didn't fill out some of these where it's like, we have to have a conversation here about what does the Bhpac think their duties are, right? I want to have that conversation before we draft any language in bylaws, right? Like there are some things we can pull from, but hey, if this isn't the words that you all use, then it doesn't make sense to put it in bylaws. As long as we're following at least some of that oversight piece from being able to get these through our legal, which will eventually, this is where they'll go once we have those drafted. So thoughts, comments, if this process, like, what you doing over there, Ryan? I'm open to those conversations as well. Margie.
Sorry. I guess what always is important to me is I can understand why there needs to be a consistent framework across councils, but the importance of ensuring that the unique roles are included in bylaws to distinguish, for example, with Behavioral Planning Advisory Council, the components that are federally mandated through SAMHSA, that might not be, it isn't included in other councils, but how do we ensure that we have the what is unique to a council, as well as that generic framework that each piece includes, i.e., committees and all of those types of things. You wouldn't want to lose one for the benefit of the other. This is my thoughts.
That is a very excellent point. I was actually just typing into the chat. Are you interested in a boards and commissions position with the BHA? But more importantly, I do think, sorry to just jump in, but it is a key point between councils to, as you're saying, the distinctions and the forms that are only for this council, but not losing that piece that is overlap, because it's a bunch of councils working in tandem to advise the BHA in this instance, right? So I don't want to lose the pieces necessarily where it overlaps either, I guess. I think you have to call out both, maybe.
Yep, and I think for me, I think there's the level of, if we are consistent with what the bylaw structures look like, we'll be able to hold two pieces of bylaws from two separate councils and say, ooh, I know exactly where to look for the duties and responsibilities of this versus this one, right? So then there's a level of consistency for us, even just saying, hey, what's the best fit for people that are wanting to jump in and help us out here, which that's what I'm hoping for within the boards and commissions position as well. And to me, this is that start. Megan.
It's the same thing I always say, Ryan, which you've heard me say a bunch, but I'll say it again. Just that, you know, and I'm looking at the SAMHSA website, and I dropped some of the stuff in the chat there from the website, you know, to advise, right? However, that's not decision making. Those are two different things. So how do we put in the bylaws what that means? And if it's not decision-making roles, then I think being clear about what is this space actually for, right? How are y'all taking this information, these meetings, this input from folks across the state, both in State Department and in community and everywhere in between, and incorporating that advisement into operationalizing structures, right? Those are two very different things. How do those come together? And how can we make that very, very clear in the bylaws? I'm sure there's something in SAMHSA bylaws that say what they'd like y'all to do with these advisory councils' input, right? But beyond going, wow, that's a good point. How can we make groups like this, because you have so much knowledge in the room, how can we make groups like this be a part of those decision-making processes in a way that takes some of the pressure off of you all and really does incorporate that person-centered, community-first voice as you operationalize structures, right? We're all here. We're all telling you. And how do we take that and really make that a powerful way that these councils really do participate in decision making so that it is person-centered, right?
Yes, yes, yes. The things that come from advisory councils, you should be able to see that in how we implement, update, and essentially deliver on a system. I will flat out say, if you don't see the, hey, we made recommendations on this, that, and the other as part of our planning and how we execute on our systems, we're not doing our job or doing you any service about why you come every month. That maybe feels like going out on a limb, but that is exactly what we should be doing with advisory councils and making sure that your time is valued here. So I think that is more than just the bylaws conversation. It's ultimately about how do we monitor and ultimately enforce this system that makes sense for people and create it in a structure that it's not just a random person working in a 9-by-9 room making all of the decisions here. That isn't what I wanted, and shouldn't be what you all want either. So I appreciate these conversations, and I think this is exactly the parts of the conversations that we absolutely have to be having. So there is a level of consistency across councils to make sure that there is this. What does advising look like? I love the hey, there's federal requirements that are specific to this. Absolutely, those are the duties. But I love the reframe of what does it actually mean, right? leading up to a state legislative session, the language of law doesn't always make a whole ton of sense. It maybe even makes even less sense on the federal side. So how are we actually explaining that in simple terms that we can all understand when folks are interested and as well. So I think that is, I love this process to go through with that. How does this group, support Colorado moving forward as well? So. I'm quickly running out of time. One thing I did want to get into is the membership conversation. We started the conversation over these last couple months about the responsibility of the Behavioral Health Administration is the ensuring that this council, as well as all of our councils, have the right members, meeting our statutory requirements of advisory councils, and want to make sure that we are utilizing the structure and flow to ensure that there is consistency across what membership looks like. Bhpac has been a little bit different for a long time, right? It's federal requirements, so we don't have the direct oversight that happens and comes with a council being driven by state law. Rather, this is federal law that drives us. So we don't have that oversight that comes with the boards and commissions from the governor's office specifically. That does not mean that we shouldn't utilize the resources that we can, as well as the resources from SAMHSA themselves to come up with how do other councils work? I guess as I get too far down this, many of you know Charlie, our SAMHSA regional coordinator. He is no longer in that role and took a job within a facility in Arkansas. So that is also a role that I think SAMHSA is seeking to fill as well. So that's another one where it's not the BHA, but a very, very powerful and influential role in federal government that has a Colorado. I think it's that position oversees 7 or 8 states in the I guess I don't really know what this part of the country is called, from like
Region
Colorado up to North Dakota.
Yeah, Region 8, I think.
Yeah, so so that's also one that Charlie had been a fantastic resource for us, and we want to make sure that we have and maintain a connection with what that role is moving forward as well. So also an opportunity to make sure that position, ideally, if it's out of Denver again. Charlie lived in Denver for a long time, and we had a little bit more access to him, especially coming from the Office of Behavioral Health over into that role. But yeah, that's another potential loss, but a good opportunity for him as well. But just thinking about how we best utilize SAMHSA moving forward within this group is my long-winded call out there. Sorry. So Lloyd, looking at you, membership, thoughts on membership, as well as kind of the membership committee. One of the things that I had in mind also is there potentially an opportunity to rebrand the membership committee with hey, is this really more focused on what recruitment looks like, and membership really is about the appointment coming from the commissioner of the BHA, but with the recruitment and kind of setting up hey, who is the best for this, as long as it kind of fits in our structure of meeting our statutory requirements of what membership does look like. I also don't want to just lob that out there and say, see ya either. So, which I just did anyways, but.
Good morning, everyone. I guess with the rebranding and membership. I guess to me, it doesn't really matter whether it's called recruitment, membership, but membership's primary responsibility is recruitment for this council. And then as well as the new member orientation, which is something we just talked about on membership, is that the one we have is completely out of date, and going to try to get that updated and for just not our new members, but the steering committee for some time has been talking about it. Something we probably ought to do on an annual basis is review the orientation, because it contains a lot of information. And my experience on council is even at year 2 and 3, there were little tidbits here that I would forget about. So it's good to hear that Charlie had an opportunity to do something different. At the same time, we were just getting ready to ask him to come visit us because he does such a good job in the past, right? Has done such a good job in the past. Doing a introduction to us of what SAMHSA is and how we fit into it. So we are going to continue to work on some recruitment. Our numbers that we've struggled with are looking pretty good. What I do not have quite plugged in with the membership committee yet is how that looks within our categories as lived experience versus providers versus state personnel. So the good news is one of the things that SAMHSA had come back to us with was they wanted to be sure that we had family members who have children. SED. I always forget what that stands for. I know Margie's got it and a couple others probably, but the thing with our current membership, we do meet that role. And so I think we're looking pretty good right now. It's just we got a lot of little tidbits to do and clean up yet. So
Yeah, and so within the bylaws, I think there is also an opportunity to be very, very clear about seats and membership. I think a few years ago we talked about even a table of this is what membership looks like, and but also don't. I think a few years ago we had that real like frank conversation about labels and titles, and people are way more complex than just I serve this role here. It's coming as yourself to a council like this. It's just that you are appointed to represent this here. As that doesn't mean that's the only hat that you wear at any one time either. So want to make sure that we are cognizant of that approach too, and also thinking about the individuals with lived experience and family, and then the what feels recent, the recovery community and the expansion of recovery support services and what that role means within treatment programs as well, and how does that fit into the structure of that. Those are also conversations that we absolutely have to have within what membership looks like. So Aaron, I see your hand raised.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm wondering, so we must have 51% of this
council having lived experience. Where are we at with that percentage currently?
that's what I do not have plugged into our spreadsheet to see where we're at with our exact numbers. A little bit of that too is getting back together with a couple of people that are new to council. There's on the application, there was a couple boxes that weren't completed by a few folks. And so we just need to reach out and get the clarification of where they're at on council. One of the things that we run into is that somebody may be a provider and a person with lived experience. And actually, Ryan, this would be another piece, whether we address it in bylaws procedures, is that our practice in the past is that if you are a licensed professional, and I don't know if that came from internal with the steering and membership committee years and years ago, or this was something that came down, but if you were a licensed professional, that you were not part of the 51%, even if you had that experience. But that, of course, that sitting here on council, you could still, have that experience and share that experience. So those are some of the little bits and pieces membership needs to work on over the next month. And with some of Samson's requests and going through the new this year's recruitment with the new membership application, we realized that on our membership roster that we do not track some of the demographics. So we have on our membership roster, the categories, we have people, the 51% with lived experience. What we haven't been tracking is how many of those people might be a family member versus a person in recovery, a community partner or an advocate. So those are some of the little demographics that we're going to get on top of and make sure that we get a better reflection. I shouldn't say reflection, that we can take a better look at the actual makeup of our council. Are we being diverse in all these areas of that, what Samson defines as lived experience?
Thanks, Lloyd. I'll also add, one of our other councils, we've been talking a lot about, that one has specific also requirements of different seats and who they're served by. And so looking at which members were represented to or were elected to serve on specific seats. And so just being able to ensure that we have all of those specific seats identified, but also recognizing that our members may serve, like you're talking, they may represent many different roles, but in the council, they have identified this is the seat I'm serving. And so I'm making sure that I am representing this specific population of the state when advising on any of the things that we're presenting to them. But that doesn't mean they can't use wear their other hats when listening to presentations and giving us advice as well. I don't know if that's helpful.
If I could jump in real quick here, as the new co-chair for membership, one of the big issues that Lloyd and Margie and I talked about is getting back to having an effective orientation, with new members, but also with current members. And one thing I haven't talked to them about yet, but it's something I think could be very effective, is for me to produce a video presentation with all the stakeholders, and have them present what the connection is to BPAC and what BPAC is about and how it works. And this is something that can be regularly updated as well. So Ryan, that's something I'm going to be getting you involved in, as well as again other stakeholders that have any connection with BPAC. That would be important for us as council members to know and how we interact.
Thanks, Dennis. And one of the things I love about the current people we have on council is we have been looking at in the past of trying to do a recruitment video. We've looked at trying to do that resource just has not been available to us to do. So one of the things that we've learned over the years, and Margie, I know will definitely, and Ryan can definitely attest to, is that we are such a diverse group with so many sets of skills and so much experience and connections out in the community. It's really great. So.
Yeah, before I leave, thank you for all of this feedback. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to make sure that we are being consistent with what membership looks like, what diversity on the council looks like. But yeah, all of these things are important conversations that we absolutely have to get right. And know that, I mean, it also is a work in progress, but we have fantastic people that have fantastic ideas here, and make sure that we are utilizing those to make sure that it's clear. There's some clarity on what this council is for, what other councils are for, and ultimately what the behavioral system for the people of Colorado is for. So thank you for that. Yes, I have to jump over to JBC. So yeah, hopefully be seeing you all soon. There's a holiday coming up, so I don't think we have another meeting until after that. So happy holidays if you do celebrate, and yeah, look forward to 2024 and the start of the legislative session as well. So thank you, folks, and be well.
All right, Megan, all yours.
All right, we can continue with this discussion. Is there any other input on membership that anyone wanted to share?
I have one last piece, Megan. We do this over the years anyway, but we'll be putting together and sending out basically a questionnaire when we've identified to the members of the council here to make sure the information that we have for everyone is accurate. So affiliations, there, some of those little pieces, and I'll just use the family member area as one example. Is that it was easy to look at the applications and see somebody who applied as a family member if they had a child, because the only box age demographic they checked was a child's age, but there were others that may have checked 2 or 3 boxes. And so needing to get a better idea, do you currently have a child and an adult? You're a family member of an adult as well. So just little nuances that check boxes and applications don't always catch. So thanks.
Do we want to continue to walk through the different pieces of the bylaws? So the next thing would be committees. And I don't know if you all have always done committees the same way, but I know since I've been joining these meetings, you break out in your committees and meet and do the work during the regular BPAC meetings, and then come back together and reconvene and have discussion, which I think that process seems very efficient. But just wanted to bring that up for discussion as well. And I see Megan and Aaliyah, you both have your hands up. So Megan, if you want to go first, and then we'll go to you, Aaliyah, right after.
Thanks, Megan. I was just looking at the documents, and I'm new, and I don't see any committee documents that are recent. And so I'm just curious, it would be great to get caught up on what's happening with the committees. How come we haven't seen any documentation from committees, at least posted on the website? Perhaps it's there, but it's not on the website. So I'd love to get caught up, get up to speed with these different committees, who's in them and what are they doing and where's the traction? So just sort of that piece as well for new members might be great. Just so if they're thinking about what committee they want to join, they have a little bit more information. And to the membership piece, just again, to reiterate that there is the Community Language Cooperative out of Denver that will come and do simultaneous interpretation. So as we invite diversity into this group, to be able to provide language justice for our Spanish speaking communities, so that we can welcome in a Spanish speaker and help those individuals to feel comfortable. And that technology is already there. It's easy to utilize. So just calling that back forward. So as we look forward, we are practicing language justice. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. I actually just did a thumbs up because I was just verifying that that's what we were doing. And just to kind of speak a little bit to what Megan was sharing, I think that's an absolute great idea. And we have the recommendations, and that's the work that we're doing. And I don't know if everybody knows that we have a recommendation year and then an off year. And so usually on the recommendation year, we're doing a lot of work with the committees, and on the off years, we're not doing as much with those committees. And I'm kind of looking around, and I see that we have multiple new people on here that weren't here last year to do the recommendations. But I think we can definitely get into the nuts and bolts of what kind of the different years tend to look like. And I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, Megan.
I think it's iterative, and thank you for catching me up. I am totally brand new. So there's lots that I don't know, and I'm learning. And I think the training videos will help, and maybe the one-on-one, so that I can ask questions with Lloyd. And then I hope it's okay that I like say things like, can we have real-time interpretation for Spanish speakers? Like, I'm not trying to get out of my lane by asking any of those questions. I just think that it would help. But if I'm over speaking, please let me know.
Megan, I greatly appreciate you bringing it to our attention and holding us accountable for that. So please, yes, continue to share. Please continue to share those things with us.
This is Margie, and I guess because I'm doing this a while, I think some of the process for the meetings is dictated by who were the chairs of the committee. So there was a time where the committees did meet. First, there were ones that met separately, but then they did meet when we broke out into groups. But our last chair had it so that we had more guest speakers that came at meetings. So it was, and we didn't do as much of the committee work until we actually had to do committee work to come up with our recommendations. So by not having a co-chairs for the council, I think that, and others might correct me and have more insights than I do, but it's just having the committees meet during council time, I think was very efficient and a good way for us to use our time. But it was also segments that came where we had people come in and really give updates. That was also very helpful.
Thanks, Margie. And that's helpful for me to learn too, because I think I started joining you all during the time when you were meeting during the meetings. So it's helpful to know that that's not the way it was always run, but that it was helpful to have, it sounds like from what you're saying, it was helpful to have a combination of time to do that during the meetings, as well as having presenters share information. And then I see Bonnie's hand. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And actually, Margie's recap is exactly what I would have said, just more eloquently as always. And Megan, I heard you say, the question, like, am I out of my lane by asking, can we? And knowing that there's a lot of new members, I would just encourage you, you're never out of line starting a question by saying, can we do this way? And I think as a state employee, it's, you know, I don't like to be viewed as like a boring bureaucrat. And I think if you ever catch me saying, well, this is the way we've always done it, please call me out. So keep asking those questions. Can we do it this way, or can we try this? So.
Thanks, Bonnie, and such a valid point. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that's the way we should do it. And I love fresh perspective on being able to ask those questions. Why is it this way? Sometimes we don't have a good answer, and that means it's time to pivot. So appreciate that. Lloyd.
Yes, so it kind of ties in with that. There's a lot of things that on council that we don't have documented. We don't have, outside of what's in the bylaws, we really don't have a lot documented as far as what, you know, each committee does or when they meet and things like this. So and with the information that's out there for our council on the state website, it is really out of date. Megan, for your reference, that is something that we've over the years have had difficulty getting updated and at times at all. And if when we are getting things updated, it's not been in a timely fashion. I understand that state IT is very busy, but other little things for us to look at and work on and figure out what works best.
Lloyd, for clarification, when you say that it's out of date, is the information out of date, or it just hasn't been updated to the website, or both?
Both. So,
okay.
For example, one of the things we've requested several times is our old membership application be removed from the website, and it's still up there, versus having the link for our Google Forms. So I don't know if we submitted the request for the Google Form link to be up there, but yeah, but the information that is up there, pieces of it are from like our membership roster is we have, I don't think the membership roster that's up there is within 8 years even. So so things that for us to look at and work on, and as people, you know, the question was asked, you know, about that information. And it's always great for people to go out and look at that stuff and bring back, you know, to identify it. It puts it back. Let me rephrase it. For me, it puts it back on my radar as far as something that we need to address. So.
Thank you, Lloyd. And I think it's my internet that you're cutting out a little bit. I don't think it's you. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then it looks like Lorene, your hand is up. And one more thing, Lloyd, if you can send, I didn't hear everything that you were saying, so I think my internet's being a little wonky, but if you can send me, Ryan, and Donda an email, and anyone else that wants to do this can do this also, if there is information that just needs to be taken down from the website, or if there's information that we have that is up to date that's not up to date on the website, let us know, and I can start working with our comms team to assure that we can make those changes. And I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Okay, Lorene.
I believe the bylaws don't have to be as specific and detailed as what we're talking about. And I think we might want to split things up, that we would put in like the recovery committee oversees the hours that other committees meet, right? But we don't have to put in what the committee meeting hours are in the bylaws, because when they change, and they're going to change at least once a year probably, we would have to change the bylaws all over again. So if we can look at what we could put in that's generic, what we think the committee should do, and maybe even throw in the bureaucratic and other duties as assigned. I don't know who would assign it, but you know, am I making myself clear? Do people understand what I'm trying to say? That's
Yes.
a question. Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
Maureen. And I think that that also aligns with when we're looking at creating bylaws that work for all of our councils. I think that piece is important too, that there's flexibility. They're not so rigid that they can't be applied to a variety of different councils, and they meet the needs and the requirements. And so I think, yes, I'm understanding what you're saying, I think.
Okay, and it could say there could be a passage that says the committee will review the website and other materials 4 times a year and update as needed. And so we know that we're supposed to be keeping up with things, but it doesn't tell us exactly when we have to do it and that those sort of things. So I like the idea of having as universal a template as we can get to. But then we really want to get in the documentation of each committee, we really want to be detailed. We really want to nail it down, I think. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what it says in the draft that we're working on is each committee shall meet with the council at least once each year at such regular meeting of the council as may be designated by the council and at such other times as may be called by the chairperson of the council. And so I think that really allows that flexibility and the chair to be helping guide that process for each. Any other questions on committees? The next one is regular meetings of the council. And so that goes into regular meetings of the council shall be held on the first Thursday of each month at a place and time determined by the council or at such other times as may be established by a majority vote of the entire membership of the council. These meetings will be virtual unless otherwise designated, and the council shall encourage a statewide presence of conducting meetings outside the Denver area as budget allocations allow. So I think that's probably a piece we need to just work on the language a little bit to determine if they are virtual, if there should be some in-person meetings and having that flexibility. I think that can also be, we can incorporate that same language around the chair helping make those decisions and the council deciding if there should be any in-person meetings or if they should all continue virtually. And then along those lines, I believe last time you all talked about making these meetings 2 hours instead of 3 hours. And it doesn't look like we specified a time in here. So I think those are the areas that we want to continue to have that flexibility.
So it could read that scheduled from 9 a.m. to 12 noon unless changed by the membership or the chair or something like that. That would be something, that and the previous one where there was a vote, I would like to see how the vote takes place.
Okay.
For example, a vote by the entire membership, that'll take forever probably to track everybody down and then, oh, I changed my mind. And so I think as we look at this stuff, we should see how it would work for us. And probably everybody has thought of that, but that's usually the way that I work with bylaws, is not how a lawyer would view it, but how a regular person would view it. And is it scaring me? What the heck are they talking about? So those are the things that go through my mind.
That's great, Lorraine. I'm just making some comments on here so we can go back to those things. I appreciate that that feedback for sure.
And this is Megan. I know we talked about maybe like it was 2 hours for the big meeting and maybe committees would meet after, and I don't know where that landed. And I'm not on a committee, so I have no opinion on it, but I imagine I will be soon or eventually. And I didn't know if we were putting that last hour for that. Also, it would be kind of cool to just like get committee updates when we meet, you know, even if it's just like, hi, this committee has nothing to report, right? But just that we are like knowing what the committees are doing and if we can be helpful in that space. So I wonder if we can add that as just like a rolling agenda item when we meet.
Thanks, Megan. I will add that as well.
Lloyd here. So with the hours that or when council meets, I think having that baseline that, you know, we meet the first Thursday of the month, and this is the time block we meet, is the expectation in the bylaws. And through time, you know, there's the time periods that right now, not being in a grant cycle to make recommendations is the amount of time that we may need to meet is shorter. So we might be able to only need to meet for 2 hours right now. But when we get in that block grant cycle and subcommittees, the committees need to meet and we're probably going to definitely need that full 3 hours, because an hour of that time will be committees. So, but over the years, you know, committees have not met all the time. And there's times they have, even when we haven't been in a block cycle. But over the more recent years, the only time the committees outside of steering the membership have met is just during the block grant cycle time. But all things for us to decide what we want committees to be doing and how that is going to work.
That's a great point too, Lloyd. So I'm adding that in here just so we have awareness to ensure that these are written flexibly enough that but still with direction, so that we can accommodate having that flexibility of, for example, shorter meetings this time of year, longer meetings when we're working on the block grant work.
Margie, again, I think, I know from the prevention committee, and I don't want to speak for our whole group, but I think when we did make recommendations, I wasn't sure that we felt that that was the end of our work. If we really did have a commitment to how our recommendations were being implemented and what role we could play in really ensuring that prevention work was continuing in the state. So I struggle with thinking that our role is just making recommendations, but it's also a part of how to ensure that what those recommendations were is actually happening. Again, when we had with our co-chairs before, we took time out to talk about what was happening broadly in the world of prevention, treatment, and recovery. So it's kind of what direction we want to have and how do we want to stay involved with the recommendations that were made.
Thank you, Margie. I noted that as well. So I was just looking at the chat. Megan, do you want to expand on your comment, being involved in the regulatory process?
Sure, thank you. So to Margie's point, knowing like what happens to these recommendations after we provide them to leadership, how will they be implemented, right? And the regulatory process is oftentimes where you'll see how those implementations live in the world. There's a law, or you shift something from an operational standpoint, and then you have to implement it. A lot of times you may have to do that through regulations, right? So that all the people who are then utilizing that implementation are doing so appropriately. So sort of like, how does it live in the world? We make a choice, and then we implement that choice through a regulatory process. Not every time, but lots of times. And so how does this group lean in on that regulatory process so that we can also advise in the space of, okay, like this awesome thing is happening, there's these awesome recommendations, and we're going to do them, and this is how we're going to do them. And so really seeing that language around regulations, and then how do those regulations live out in the world to make these things happen, right? So it's kind of that full circle. If we bring these recommendations forward, how do we then follow those recommendations to see how they're really affecting the communities? What if we thought it was going to be great and it wasn't? What if we thought it wasn't going to be great and then it was? So I think knowing how it's regulated is important for this group. So when we're advising from a space of knowledge. Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense, Megan. Thank you.
To add on a little bit to Megan's point, again, and this was from my becoming a member just this year, I had no idea of what we were doing, how we were doing it, and I really didn't understand the hierarchy. And that's why it's so important to have an orientation to bring all members, new and old, up to a certain level of understanding of what we do, so that we don't have a feeling that when we do something, when we make these recommendations, and that it just goes into the black hole and we don't even know where to follow it. And I think it's important that we follow. And that's why I'm such a big fan of Margie. She's an accountable person. And I don't want members to feel like this is just window dressing. It's really, really important that we know where it goes and what actions came of it, and what other input we can have in order to be effective.
And I would just jump on and just thank you both, Megan and Dennis. Well put, just eloquently well put and agreed. Being a new member, especially, and I feel like we are such a wonderful group. There's such wisdom and experience, expertise in this space, and I know I'm not alone in this as well. In others, groups that we might be in, stakeholders, work groups, councils. It feels like we do this great work, and then these recommendations, they live in like a recommendation graveyard somewhere. Like we don't know what happens to them. And it's unfortunate. And then it does feel as if, what are we doing here? And why continue to show up and give our all and our time and our energy and effort to this when we can't follow, we don't know where it goes, and that accountability piece and the transparency piece. So I just echo what you've shared. And I think that's very important and will be very helpful for this council. Thank you.
Thank you for that as well, Hope. And I was thinking along those same lines, with all of our councils being able to, obviously you can go through and review the work we're doing, but there's a lot to it. And so not really being able to identify where your recommendations show up. But I think that's something that we can get better at doing, is looping back around with all of our councils and saying, we made these modifications to this based on your recommendations, so that you see that process happening. I feel like that's what I'm really hearing the need for from all of you. And I see Erin.
Thank you. I completely agree with that. To know where the recommendations going, that would
be great to, have a report on that. So we skipped on the bylaws directly to membership, and we didn't take time to look at purpose, Article 2 purpose of this. So who made up the purpose for these bylaws? Was that BHA? Was that SAMHSA block grant? Was that your group? For our current bylaws, Article 2 purpose of this council? I'm just wondering, is that set in stone, and by what organization?
Since I've been here, no decisions are made without the council's input for the bylaws. So we redid the bylaws, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, and it looks like we're looking at them again because we have so many people. So so it's my understanding, and I'm sorry if I'm totally wrong here, but it's my understanding that the council is the one that puts the input into the bylaws, just in general, unless it's SAMHSA specific. So I'm assuming SAMHSA has a purpose for these groups, and also it looks like we can probably, I would imagine we can probably be a little flexible with those.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because when I'm reading the purpose
of the council, there are 5 things stated. And one of them is to write and amend strategic plans for behavioral health services in the state of Colorado and recommend such plans to the Colorado state government. So in my mind, that would be a good committee if that's something we're supposed to address. I would imagine then a subcommittee for that specific thing. I mean, I'm new. I'm just asking questions like Megan. I'm just trying to, if this is our governing document, then we need to stand by this governing document and our charges. This is our purposes. And so when I'm looking at the 5 of these, if those stand firm, then everything we do needs to be right around those 5. I mean, that's how I look at this document, that if that's our purpose, we really need to be conscious about our subcommittees and our time and our goal. Like, we have to stay around these 5 areas, or expand them or change them, like you're saying. And so I'm just not seeing, there's some specific things on here that I'm not sure that so far the council has been addressing or have a subcommittee for. So I'm just bringing up Article 2 in the bylaws, that I think we need to focus on those a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. I'm making note of that as well. We obviously have a lot of work to do on this as we standardize it and ensure that this works for all of our councils and boards. So all of your input is really helpful, and assuring this isn't, while we're standardizing this and we're making sure that it works for all of them, we're not doing this without any of our councils. And so these same conversations are will continue to happen with one of our other councils. Has had a lot of conversations about bylaws as well. And so I think this will continue to keep all of this information and feedback in mind. And Lloyd, I see your hand.
Yes. So, I mean, our primary purpose here is that we're in federal statute. So, to make recommendations state, you know, for the, for SAMHSA. So, and there's this piece that we're moving to, as Megan just stated, of, trying to standardize some of these bylaws across the councils. But we have 2 people on right now that have had some prior experience on this council. I'm not sure how much with the bylaws, but I was wondering if either one of them might want to comment on some of the things that might be in that purpose, and that would be Frank and or Charles.
Frank or Charles, if you have something that you want to add, feel free to raise your hands and we'll circle back to you. Okay. Anything else around this? The next section is quorum. The quorum of members necessary for the council to transact business shall be a simple majority of the entire membership of the council. Decision of the council shall be by simple majority vote of the members of the council present unless otherwise specified by these bylaws. So that's from your current bylaws. There's no changes that we've made to that section. And then one area that we are, as a BHA, really having a lot of discussion around is a compensation for our advisory councils and ensuring that looking at our policy for that and alignment for that as well, as there's some variation just based on how, when, and how councils were established. And so we have a lot of work to do in that area, and don't have anything yet in place, but that will be an update coming soon as we just evaluate that process and what that looks like.
Megan, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Megan. So for the compensation piece, I think being aware of the different roles that we all have in our lives, and there may be humans whom are utilizing public benefit, perhaps SSDI or other disability programs that would dictate how they could be compensated because of income caps. So whilst this isn't a regular conversation in these rooms, I hope it does become one. As we grow diversity, we're going to grow diversity with lived experience, which means that we will be directly interfacing with folks who are using SNAP, Section 8, Social Security Disability, and other programs where there are unfortunately income caps that are not directly relevant in 2023. And just so thinking around compensation in a creative way. Some people can just take a check. Some people can't. And that's hard with state government but it's not impossible. So I'm happy to have an offline conversation with y'all. At the Blueprint and Hunger, we have like a really, really robust compensation model that we use that allows for us to compensate folks in lots of different ways so that we don't leave anybody out of compensation when we do decide to compensate folks for their service here.
Thank you, Megan. I am making note of that as well. Can you say that one more time, the name of the organization that you just mentioned, that has a unique policy in place around that?
That's the Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger. And Megan, I can email you our compensation model. And the Blueprint does work with CDHS and several different state departments. So there's some familiarity around this. We just want to grow that familiarity. So I'll share our model and also our director's number. So you can just chat with him about how they created that and how they utilize that within State Department.
Thank you. Okay, so compensation is one that we'll get back to as we look at that, and appreciate all of the feedback and ideas around that. That's really helpful. Article 3 is procedures and rules of order. So I'm just going to read all of these, and then if you want to come back to any of them, we can, or feel free to stop me. I'm just for full disclosure, I'm on my laptop today, and so I'm switching screens. So if you raise your hand while I'm talking, I can't see you. So just interrupt me. I'm totally fine with that. Meetings of the council shall be conducted generally in keeping with Robert's Rules of Order, except as otherwise provided in these bylaws, but shall be as informal as circumstances permit. The chairperson shall preside at all meetings. In the absence of the chairperson, the vice chairperson shall perform all duties of the chairperson. In the absence of the chairperson and vice chairperson, a member selected by those council members shall preside. The agenda may be changed by the chairperson or by a majority vote of the council members present. The chairperson shall rule on all matters related to the length of testimony and who shall be heard at meetings, but such ruling shall be subject to change upon a majority vote of the council members present. All meetings of the council shall be recorded and retained in appropriate minutes. The chairperson may participate in discussion and shall vote as any other council member. A roll call shall be taken upon the request of any council member. The name of the council members shall be called in alphabetical order by the council administrator, and each member shall vote yes or no at such times unless the council member chooses to abstain. Any questions on any of that? And then I wanted to loop back around. Frank is multitasking and listening to the JBC hearing, which I do apologize that this meeting is at the same time, as I'm sure lots of folks want to be listening to that as well. And so, Frank, thank you for being on both. I'm impressed by that. And he says there used to be a policy legislative committee update. So he's listening on that. Not sure if Frank can hear us now, but Lloyd, did you want to come back to your question for Frank?
Sure. So we were in that portion of the purpose of the council, and outside of what we do here for that we're here due to the federal mandate, SAMHSA, was whether or not you might have any other input as to our purpose here.
I'm just going to put that in the chat for him in case he gets a chance to respond to it.
I think he may have dropped off.
Oh, okay, then I won't put it in. We can always follow back up with him as well. So moving along to the general policy section, the council shall act only by resolution at a duty called meeting of the council, and no individual member of the council shall exercise individually any administrative authority with respect to the Behavioral Health Administration or Department of Human Services. No individual member of the council shall make a statement of policy which purports to be that of the council unless the council shall have adopted such policy, but no one shall be prohibited from stating his or her personal opinions, provided they are clearly identified as such. When a council member becomes aware of a potential conflict of interest, the council member must disclose the potential conflict of interest prior to obtaining in discussion on the matter. The council shall then have the opportunity to deliberate on whether the conflict of interest exists. Council members may participate in discussions regarding topics on which they may have a conflict of interest, but may not participate in the formal voting process when an actual conflict exists. Any concerns around that section? And it does not look like there's any that we're recommending any changes. That's in your current bylaws as well. Okay, then moving on to the next section. Administrative directives. This section, I believe, needs some updating. It currently says the Commissioner of the Behavioral Health Administration shall attend all council meetings or send a suitable representative selected by the Commissioner. So I think we're looking at, currently that's not standard across all of our advisory councils. And the representatives are the division directors that facilitate the meetings. So just looking at some clarification around that. And Megan, I see your hand.
Yes, I'm just so curious. What is the status of the hunt for the new commissioner? Because I know that Michelle, she's interim, correct? So do you know if there's any traction on finding like a permanent human that will be in that role?
Megan, what I can share is the Gov's office is very committed to this process and very committed to ensuring that we find the right person for the BHA for that role. And so while the process is taking a bit longer than we all had anticipated and hoped, I have full confidence that they're really ensuring we get the right person appointed into that role. And so short answer is I don't have an update, but we continue to get that same communication that they're really committed to ensuring we have the right person that has the right, that has the mission that we need, that's on support with this work in helping us to continue to carry it forward. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next is council administration shall prepare an agenda for all regular meetings and have such agenda emailed to council members at least 5 days prior to each meeting. Copies of the minutes of each regular meeting shall be emailed to all council members by council administration at least 5 days prior to the next succeeding. Sorry, I can't read today. To the next succeeding regular meeting. Minutes of emergency or special meetings shall be emailed to board members as it is reasonably possible.
The Commissioner of Behavioral Health Administration shall see that the council is kept well informed of the activities and programs of the Behavioral Health Administration and of its committees and councils, and shall regularly advise the council concerning any staff vacancies relating to high-level personnel. A calendar of important dates shall be prepared by council administration. And as I'm reading this, and then Megan, your question is in the back of my head still. I do have one small update that may be helpful to this group. I don't know if you all are familiar with Kelly Kelsey. She is coming to the BHA from the Colorado Children's Campaign. And Kelly is joining us as a senior member of the BHA. She'll be helping us with the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Implementation Plan, as well as supporting the divisions of engagement, policy, and communications. So 2 of those divisions are my division and Ryan's division, and then also our communications team. So that is one update that I can share, is that additional senior member, which I'm really excited about. Kelly's done some phenomenal work for Colorado, and so I'm really excited to see where she takes us and how she supports us with the Children and Youth Implementation Plan, because it is a big lift and it is so needed for Colorado.
Megan, this is Megan, and would it be possible for you to, and that's so exciting, great news, would it be possible for you to share that implementation plan document, please, so we can review that?
Yes. So, and Megan, I know you were on at least one of the stakeholder sessions that we presented that at. And so we, as follow-up to that, we are currently working on preparing that document to live on our website. And so I anticipate I have a meeting after this with our comms team to talk about next steps for that, as well as when the press release will take place to announce that work. And so that will be on our website. I assume it will be on our Children, Youth, and Families page, but it may be elsewhere. It may have its own page. I don't know. But that will be updated on there, as well as the slides that were presented during the stakeholder sessions in November.
Thank you. Just sometimes that I did notice, I was on that meeting and a different one, and I noticed that like it's hard when y'all are referring to the plan, but we can't read it, you know? And so we're like, because this part of the plan does this thing, and we're like, oh, you know, a lot of us like to follow along. And so I'm very tactile, and I want to go and I want to look at that part of the plan that Dr. Worthwine is talking about in that moment, right? And like think about, well, how is that going to live in rural communities like mine, you know? And it's hard to do that if we can't see it. So that's why it'd be good to see.
I'm absolutely with you, Megan. I am the same way in needing to see things and read things. We really wanted to be able to start talking about it and getting that plan out there, socializing the document so that you were all aware of it. And so that was really the purpose and intent of those stakeholder sessions. And then while we were simultaneously still working on finalizing the larger document. And so what we were providing an overview for is a summary of the larger document. So our summary document is, once we have those up on the website, I would suggest reading the summary document because it will give you a high level overview. And that document, I think, is about 6 pages versus the full implementation plan, which last I looked at it was 107 pages. And so it's a really large, very detailed document. But I think, at least for me, it helps to have an overview of what I'm diving into by starting with the summary document.
Thank you. And just a timeline maybe when, and I, you know me, I'm a total nerd, and I will read all 100 million pages of any document that you share with us. But specifically, this is of interest because I know it's going to directly affect my kiddo and lots of kiddos in my community. So just maybe a timeline so that we'd love to be able to read it in full, like before tons of big decisions are made about rolling this out. Very specifically, like how are the BASOs going to do this? Because there's so much BASO mystery. And how will ACC 3.0 reflect it, right? And like where does it show up in our communities? And so it would be frustrating if the document came out and then there were like bills that came out like the next day, right? That were like, and now we're going to ask for this funding for this thing that we decided we're going to do. Especially when you look at the stakeholders, because there were not like providers or clients directly involved in the conversations. When you look at like the slides that Dr. Werthwein presented, when you look at the stakeholders, there were lots of state departments, but like not people who will then take this and use it in community providers that will use it with clients, or how will clients access it. And so we hope we have enough time to read and contemplate and discuss and be in partnership with you all as this rolls out, because it's really overarching and it really is transformative and we want it so much to work. So it would just kind of be a shock and maybe a bit disappointing if all of these decisions were made for us without any input. And when I say us, I'm not just meaning like one lady in Eagle County with a kid. I really mean like parents and families and providers and crisis centers and everyone who sees these kiddos, these families all the time. So I just wonder about timeline. And even if you don't know, Megan, maybe like taking that back and saying, can we please make sure we give folks enough time to really digest this before we start to ask for money and give the money away, and then people are doing it if we don't know what the it is that y'all are doing.
Thank you, Megan. And I did catch most of what you said. I apologize. My internet's being a little bit spotty again. But this work, so the Behavioral Health Task Force Children's Subcommittee, there was a robust stakeholdering that went along with that beginning in 2019. And I'm sure some of you were a part of that. But that really drove this work and drove what went into this implementation plan. And so, Megan, the work group that you're referring to that was on one of those slides that was presented, that includes representatives from 7 different state agencies that work specifically with children, youth, and families. The work that they did to develop this implementation plan came from all of the work from the Children's Subcommittee around that. And so it was driven through a stakeholder process, through really listening to the lived experience, but also absolutely 100% understand your perspective and what you're asking for. And this work is a collaboration between the voices of the community, between all of our stakeholders, as well as our state agencies. And so when we look at timeline, just to be as transparent as possible, we are looking at making this public to all of you as quickly as we can. And so I do think that the summary document, hopefully that should be on our website, as well as the slides that were presented next week. And then if not next week, the larger document should be soon to follow.
Thank you. I added some additional comments in the chat just about the nature of those agencies. And certainly we are trying to transform out of just aggregating all families and youth into systems such as the criminal justice or child welfare, right? Or the court system. And so when you look at those groups, that many of them, they don't even see kiddos and families until there's involvement. We know Dr. Werthwein's vision is to not have that involvement be point of first contact. So How do those groups who are stakeholders in continuing involvement, most certainly not because they're not good people, but most certainly because that's their area of expertise, right? Your area of expertise, if you're a DA or if you're a a child welfare person, or if you are a probation officer, that's your area of expertise. And that's where you know where to lean in and how to lean in. So knowing that, and knowing that we want to keep kiddos and families out of those systems, unless of course they need to be in them, but they don't all need to be in them. So where are we getting that stakeholdering from groups outside of those communities of practice? That's really where my concern lies with that. And being on the safety net subcommittee with the behavioral health task force, what I noticed is many of our recommendations, when they're kind of out in the world or going to be out in the world soon, and some of us scratched our heads a bit and went, that's not really what we talked about. So, and I wasn't in the youth one. I wasn't in the youth and family for the task force, but I don't know if that's reflected in there as well. Certainly not to minimize any of those state departments or the work that they're doing. But as Dr. Worthwine imagines this single entry point, we really hope that it's not through system involvement, right? We really hope that it's through behavioral health, right? The people who are the experts in this work.
Thank you for that, Megan. And I'm wondering, as you're talking and as I'm seeing Margie, I see your comment in here as well about wanting to see how Bhpac recommendations might have been integrated into this work. I don't drive your agenda, but I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have a presentation on the Child and Youth Behavioral Health statewide implementation plan, maybe during the January meeting or the February meeting. Just kind of wanted to hear if that would be something helpful. The presentation is, for those of you that were able to attend our stakeholder sessions, it's there's a lot of information, and so it is. We have not been able to get it in under an hour. So it's a commitment of we can see if we can kind of have a concise version, but then I don't feel like it gives you all of the information.
This is Margie. I just want to throw out, actually, I think Chris Meyer and Robert Wertheim were supposed to be at our last meeting and present on this. And because Chris had left and Robert wasn't available, that it didn't happen. So the attempt was made, and I, for one, think it would be wonderful to be able to have an update and a presentation on that.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And thanks for sharing that information with me, Margie. Yes, we did have some transition that that probably got a little bit lost. And so we now have Matt Holtman, who has joined the BHA. He joined us at the beginning of October. He joined my division for engagement, and he has jumped right into the implementation plan. So those of you that joined the stakeholder sessions have had an opportunity to hear Matt co-present with Robert. And so I will look at who would be the best presenters. For sure, it would be Matt, and then if Robert is available to join us, he can. And at that point, if we're looking at January, Kelly Cossey, who is amazing, is jumping right in on this implementation plan. So it may be helpful to have at least an update from her, even if she's not presenting on it. If that's something you feel you would benefit from, I will reach out and see how I can make that happen. And then I'm seeing in chat, it sounds like a couple of people need to leave. And I want to respect all of your time. So is this meeting today 2 hours? Just so that I'm not like, okay, yes. Okay, so we are 4 minutes from time. So I will respect that. And it sounds like we have a lot to continue to discuss in upcoming meetings. And then as follow-up from me, I will take the next steps to ensure that we can have someone join you all in January to talk about the Child and Youth Behavioral Health statewide implementation plan.
Thank you very much. You did well herding cats.
You all are wonderful. I love the meaningful discussions and holding us accountable and giving us the direction and the advisement. That's what we need. This isn't something that any one group of people can do by ourselves. We need our councils directing us and guiding us, advising us on the things that we're missing, because we all miss things if we don't have other eyes on it.
Thanks, Megan. You're awesome.
Thanks, Megan.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, with that, is Lloyd still on here? Lloyd, did you have
Yes.
any additional closing comments that you wanted to share?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting and wish you all a wonderful December and any celebrations that you celebrate. And we'll see you in January.
January 4th?
Donda says yes. And then I'm just looking at Margie. Ryan usually gives a legislative update at each of our meetings. Hopefully he will continue to do that. Yes. Ryan, I believe Ryan is planning to be here for the January meeting as well. Okay. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.